The following podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Please see additional important disclosure at the end of this podcast. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.
Welcome to the Crazy Wealthy Podcast with your host, Jonathan Blau. Whether you're just starting out or are an experienced investor, join Jonathan as he seeks to illuminate and demystify the complexities of making consistently rational financial decisions under conditions of uncertainty. He'll chat with professionals from the advice world, entrepreneurs, executives, and more to share fresh perspectives on making sound decisions that maximize your wealth. And now, here's your host.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. I'm happy today to have as a guest a long-time friend and someone who introduced me to the world of pinball machines a long time ago, and I don't know, about 20 some odd years ago, and I'm still engaging in the world of pinball machines. So, Jack Guarnieri, welcome to the podcast, Crazy Wealthy. Good to have you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been great to know you all these years. It's been a lot of fun.
Likewise. My wife doesn't share that same sentiment, but that's a whole different story. So, Jack, you and I met through a friend of mine who when he bought his new house in Long Island, he built Dave and Buster's basically in his basement, and
he made double wide doors so we could get games in there.
I remember the story.
Yeah.
And then I also remember when there was a flood and you guys had to come and get everything out and put it back in. But my means were a little more modest than his back then, but I was still impressed by looking at all these games. So he put me in touch with you when you were pinballsales.com, and then and I had only good experiences. So we got, our basement wasn't any slouch. We have a skee ball, a couple of Papa shots that are like 9 or 10 feet high, Chex hockey, a video game. But it's still, he had much more, but we had a good time with it. And then recently in Montauk, we got the Elton John pinball, which we'll talk about, and another arcade game. But talk to me about how you got started. I know you were recently in Town and Country, and I was reading that 1970 or so you were fixing pinball machines. How did you learn to fix pinball machines, and how did that happen and lead to everything else?
When I was younger, let's say about 14, 15 years old, I was on CB radio, and I met a lot of friends on CB. And everybody was.
For those who don't know, that's Citizens Band. I mean, I remember those days.
That was the internet. That was the internet of the 1970s. So,
right.
So that was social media in 1975. So as a kid, I was curious about electronics, and all my friends that I met on CB, they would be tinkering with electronics, and it got more of a hold on me, that I loved electronics. And in school, in high school, there was an electronics lab. And half of my senior semester, I stayed in the electronics lab, and I didn't go to any of the other classes. So I got a 99 in electronics, but not so good in everything else. But I had to catch up. I passed all the regents and everything. I got out of high school. They were happy to get rid of me. And I said, you know what? Let me take a break for 6 months. I'll go get a job before I go to college. Because I didn't register anywhere. I was thinking about going to Hofstra for electronics or something like that. And I answered an ad in the newspaper for a pinball mechanic. And one of my friends was fixing pinball machines at an operator in Brooklyn, where I was. And I said, if he could do it, I could do it. I'm smarter than him. So that was the beginning. This gentleman, Heinz Magdalinsky, who was doing it 30 years at the time, which is an old guy. I'm over 40 years doing it. He hired me, and I learned. Yeah, I learned.
And so one of the things that mentioned in the article is that in the 70s, when you started fixing pinball machines, and you were buying them and placing them in pizzerias and stores, and on a revenue share basis, right? In those days, I guess the quarters went in, and if you placed the machines, they shared some of that revenue with you.
Right.
And then it evolved, obviously, into something much greater. It said that you identified an opportunity where you recognized that people of means wanted to have these machines in their homes. What led you to that revelation?
Well, I was running a distributorship called Mondale Distributing in New Jersey while I had my amusement center and while I had games out on the route and while I was repairing games for other people. So I was pretty busy, let's call it around the end of 1998, 1999. And I had a customer in FAO Schwartz, the famous toy store.
Oh, yeah.
And the games they would put in their catalog would come from me, and they would mark them up significantly. There was really not much of an internet to check any prices. So maybe a pinball machine that cost them $5,000 sold for $8,000. And they were all going to people's homes. They were rich people or movie stars and actors and football players and basketball players. But I said to myself, everybody wants these games. And if they have a credit card, they could buy them. And in September of 1999, pinballsales.com was born. And the idea was to sell commercial arcade pinball machines and video games to the consumer market.
Yeah, well, and it worked, right? It worked. You told me you became one of the leading distributors for Stern Pinball for many years and around the globe.
Yeah, they were the only company making pinball machines. So it was kind of easy. It was not easy becoming a distributor because the people at Stern Pinball didn't believe that I'd be in business for long, because who wants a pinball machine in their house? This big contraption of wires and all the nuts and bolts and everything. Who wants that in their home? But I felt that people would want it in their home. And I thought that once they get into the home, when the kids play them and they grow up, they're going to want to go out in the wild and find pinball machines. And that's basically what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's great. So when I met you, you were basically pinballsales.com, and I got any game I wanted from you, any arcade game, from a pinball machine to a skee ball to a video arcade game.
We sold driving games for $30,000. We sold
not to me, you didn't, but
virtual golf games. We sold wireless jukeboxes.
Everything, right? So from that, you then became in 2011, you went into the pinball manufacturing business, for lack of a better description, and you became Jersey Jack Pinball. First of all, and competed, I guess, with Stern. But talk to me about what the origin of the name Jersey Jack Pinball, and then we'll talk about the evolution of the company.
Okay. In October of 2004, I was asked to write a column in Replay Magazine. Replay Magazine is the industry's premier trade magazine, and it's read by about 4,000 or 5,000 operating companies that operate amusement games all over the country. And the column, it needed a name, and Eddie Adlam, the owner of the magazine, called me up and he said, "Hey, you're Jersey Jack." And I said, "Who's Jersey Jack?" "You're Jersey Jack. That's the name you're going to write under." And I said, "I'm from Brooklyn. I don't, He says, "Well, you're from Jersey now, and you're Jersey Jack, and you're going to like it." And so when I started the company, I didn't know what I was going to call the company. And a bunch of my customers are like, "Call it Jersey Jack Pinball." I don't want it named after me. I'm not that, my ego is big, but not that big. And I'm not that narcissistic. But we did it. It stuck. And I'm Jersey Jack.
I actually like the name. From my memory, I think that Pinball Sales was based in New Jersey, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was that there's some connection. So I want to dig into some other things. I was born in Queens. You were born in Brooklyn. And, in my business, wealth management, I always felt like, while we do have minimums, our firm in place, but putting that aside, everybody needs what we do. Everybody needs some kind of plan so that they don't run out of money in their lifetime, or so that they make sure their goals are met financially and so forth. So everybody needs it at every level. But you have a tagline that you use for your business. What's the tagline?
I reluctantly say we sell everything nobody needs, but it's everything everybody wants. And
right. So, but what's interesting is you distributed games basically for the majority of your career. And my feeling is getting to know you over all these years, almost 25 years, I think. What I noticed is you and I have something very similar, so there's lots of people who provide planning services, lots of people. And there are people, distributing games. I mean, it's somewhat a commodity. Anyone could do it if they wanted to get there. There's no barriers to entry, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, and so to me, what I always took pride in is I always wanted, even when I was an accountant at Arthur Andersen, I always wanted to do the best work so that my clients would come back and say, thank you. And you really helped me. And then there was always a sense of satisfaction. It was never about making a lot of money, when I said that happened, thankfully, or whatever, but that wasn't the goal. And I always noticed with you, now your business is much bigger than when I first met you. But when I first met you, you had a significant position in the industry. And you've never changed. If I have an issue and I call Jack, I get Jack. You were relaying a story to me that you still have an old number that press 1 if this, press it, and then 3 is if you're Jack, and then you answer the phone and someone says to you, why'd you answer the phone?
Because you called.
Right, so that's what I always loved about you. And I think what leads to success in general, in my business, in your business, is that when you take pride of ownership and what's most important is to make the customer happy. And so I have to replace something. Jonathan, I'm going to send you, just sent me basketballs to replace in my machine. I didn't ask you to send them to me. I wanted to get, but you sent them to me. And because I told you my basketballs were going bad, but you're not worried about, okay, now how am I going to make up for the $80 or whatever it costs me? You never do that. And I'm the same way. If someone calls me and asks me something, I'm always available. And so I think that it's a lesson for today's generation, right? You just, if you work hard, but you also take pride of ownership and put the customer first, whoever the customer is multiple. It's the end customer, the client investing the money with me. It's their accountant and their lawyer who need my help to service. So when you recognize that, but I don't know how you teach that. You and I were talking on the phone yesterday, and I said something. You said you think that you were thinking exactly the same thing, that I would hate to start my business today because the level of employees available, just their attitudes are so different that I think it would be very difficult.
Not everybody, but they get paintbrushed, with the same brush.
Yeah. As a general thing. Yeah.
I always wanted to treat people like I wanted to be treated. And when I talk to a customer on the phone, I picture my mom and my dad and my sister, my brother, my wife on the other end of the phone. And how can I solve the problem? Even today, I'm involved in a lot of things in my company, less than I was years ago, thankfully. I don't have to worry about how much money is in the bank or anything like that.
Right.
When a situation becomes elevated to a point where the customer is frustrated, we don't want to have that. So they'll break the glass on the fire extinguisher, and I'll get a call or an email, and I'll call the customer. And the most irate customer, the amazing thing, it's just so funny to me and humbling. When I call the customer's like, "Oh, I didn't want to bother you. I can't believe you're calling me." Whatever. They're apologizing to me for that problem. And I'm like, no. Listen, it's the other way around. I'm thankful for you being a customer of ours. And how can we solve your problem? And we solve the problem. I take lemons and I make them into lemonade,
Yeah, but you always have. Again, I know you for all these years, and it's true. I mean, and I'm the same way. Someone will call me, "Oh, I didn't want to get you. I meant to call the office." If the phone's, if in the odd chance, which happens sometimes, there's 3 or 4 people on the phone, so that there's no phone line. It bounces to my cell phone. That's just the way it works. And I'll answer the phone. So I didn't mean to call you. Like, well, it's okay. I'm happy to get a chance to catch up with you. And I'm happy to help you, direct the call if I can't help you. But you, when I was reading the article, it cost you $2 million, it said, to develop a game. So the machines cost, I don't know, from $10,000 to $15,000, depending upon which machine you get. So really, it sounds like you have to sell 200 machines basically, or so, maybe to break even, right? 150 to 200
machines to break even.
1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what people sometimes don't realize. When you look at the end product and you look at the price, you say, why am I paying so much? But
if you look at a couch and it's $1,000 for the couch, the furniture store probably paid $250 for it. There's a big markup in a lot of other things. We have a small markup. We're not going to get rich, but we're going to have a nice business with, that supports several hundred people in the company and all the vendors and all the suppliers and distributors we have around the world. And it's what I do.
And I also read in the article that the guy, I never watched the show, I'm embarrassed to say. My wife loves the show, Ted Lasso. She keeps telling me to watch it, but it says that he's bought several of your machines.
Jason Sudeikis is a friend. I know him about 10 years or so, and he's bought games on Ted Lasso. In some of the episodes, you see the Wizard of Oz game in the pub, and he plays it, and other characters play it and everything. So it's part of the set, and they're back filming in London right now. And I can tell you there's a Wizard of Oz game in the pub again for season 4.
That's great. So Jack, when I had an interesting childhood in that my dad had rheumatic fever when he grew up and caused him to have a mitral valve issue, had a stroke when I was 11, was paralyzed and then passed away. So I really didn't have a childhood where, I didn't have a lot of the same things some other kids I grew up with had, where I was challenged that way, and we didn't have money and that kind of thing. So I never had a lot of cool stuff growing up. And I don't, no regrets. It's just what it was. But I attribute that to why I overdid it with my kids a little bit, and that was a mistake. It's something I advise my clients not to do. My wife always says, why don't you do what you tell your clients to do with your kids? But it's not always so easy. But I look at my, when I saw my friend's basement, and I feel like some of that was for me to make up for what I didn't have as a child. As I got these great games, and I would go down to the basement. Yeah, the kids did it, but I went probably down more than they did for the first 5 years. But I want you to talk about what you see in your clients, like why the demand from adults for these kind of things that nobody needs that are expensive.
Well, some of it is what you touched on. It's recapturing the youth, sharing what they love with the next generation or two. When I see my grandchildren come play my games, I love it. The little guy, he's 1.5, little Oliver, and he'll sit on a stool with my wife, and he'll just look at the lights and hit one side, one flipper, because he can't reach across the game. And then my granddaughter, Olivia, she's already a champion pinball player, along with Gary, little Gary. So, because she's 9 and he's 7, so they're bigger, they could see it. There's a step stool that they could climb on when they were smaller to get to see it. It's a feel-good product. It's a mechanical, electronic device that's extremely complicated, but we make it simple for the people that buy it and own it. They're very easy to understand, very easy to set up. The games are programmed and designed. They're difficult. They're easy to play, difficult to master. So we want you to have fun playing it, but it's going to be a challenge. And what we revealed with Harry Potter, our latest game, which is behind me,
which took you, by the way, how long to get to production?
Oh my goodness, about 10 years to get the license. It was well worth it. Right? With Harry Potter, we have these QR codes that are on the screen, but we also give you a key fob, and you can hold this up and point it at the camera on the game before you start the game, and you can play easy, medium, or hard settings. So all the settings change for the one game. So if you have young people that really don't play pinball and they get frustrated because they get to a point in the game and they lose the ball, this will make it a little easier for them and teach them how to play a little bit better.
That's interesting. Yeah. By the way, we recently bought the Elton John game, as you know, and we bought that for our house in Montauk because we have a small basement there. So we only have a couple of games, but we enjoyed it. And we actually got an artist at the local Montauk show who had an Elton John painting, an original, with all the, with the crocodile from Crocodile.
You sent me a picture. It was beautiful.
I sent you a picture, yeah. So it looks great. Like, the picture, I said to him, how much would it be to get we wanted a larger one to fit on the wall. He said, "Oh, I thought he was going to say $2,000-$3,000. It's $350." I said,
Wow, that
"Great."
was fucking.
3 years. So he said, but the only thing is when we deliver it to you, I forget where he was. He wasn't in Florida, but somewhere out of town. It's like shipping's expensive now, probably $300 to ship. I said, no problem. Let's do it. So he created the original, was great. And then he calls me the day before it's shipping, says, listen, I have some bad news. I said, what happened? He said, the shipping is actually $650. I can't control it. So I said, you know what? Let's cancel it. I said, I'm just kidding. We just said, send the picture. We're good. So he said, but the shipping costs twice as much as the picture, but it looks great. It looks great.
No, it looked really good. I thought the picture was a lot more than that.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, he did a great job. On the positive side, what was most surprising to you throughout your career as it relates to what you've done and seen unfold in the game industry? And then what were some of the things that might have been either most disappointing or surprising on the downside?
Interesting. What was most satisfying or surprising was, I guess, the change in technology. Because when I started doing this, there were electromechanical pinball machines with score wheels that went around, and we got out of that. We got into electronic games with a digital score. And then I brought the whole industry into the 21st century with the big HD flat screen monitor in the game.
Yeah.
Different type of sound system, RGB LEDs, which are LEDs that change thousands of colors.
I have that on the Elton John. I noticed that. Yeah, we have it. It's
so
different.
You know, back in the day, you had a white light bulb go through an insert, which was blue or red or green. It was always going to be blue or red or green. That never going to change color. Now we do amazing light shows. We have amazing sound systems. The toppers on the games are unbelievable. There's an Elton John game, and there's the topper of the game. There's a little glare, but I say they're playable artwork because they are. And I always said that we don't design anything with a calculator. We design it with passion. But I think the leaps of technology in games, especially pinball, has been meteoric. I mean, really, in the last 50 years. And you'd expect that because who knows what they'll be in another 50 years? I don't know.
With AI, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and on the other side of it, what things were most surprising to you, maybe on the negative side, or disappointing?
I wouldn't say disappointed. I wish the world would know that there's still pinball machines, and that's what we're trying to do. We have vendors. That come to the building. I had a guy pull up with a truck one time with a paintball gun when I had pinballsales.com, and he thought it was a paintball place. And it's not paintball, it's pinball. What is that? It's like, oh, they still make those things? We get that often. We're in our little world. We go to our pinball shows where thousands of pinball pinheads come to the shows. We're in our own community. We're in our own leagues.
I would imagine some of what you're describing, the awareness part, is probably because when I grew up, I went to the pizza place. There's a pinball machine. I went to the shopping center. There was a place with arcade games. Right. They don't have that anymore, right? So
not really. No, not really. You don't see them, but now you see them in everybody's home.
That's what I'm saying. But people who aren't going to other people's homes, where's their awareness coming from? That's what it is. I'm going to help you figure that one out.
The big chains like Dave and Buster's and Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay.
They had pinball for a while, many years ago, and pinball requires a little bit extra skill to have somebody repair it. So, redemption games, mostly just replacing tickets, putting tickets into games, and the revenue they make in amusement centers is far outweighs the revenue a pinball machine can make.
So, Jack, one last question I have for you that I'm curious about. For the clients who are your customers, like me, longtime customers, how, on average, do you find that they're buying often, like once a year, buying a new thing or replacing something, or is it just periodically and unpredictable?
It's periodically and unpredictable for the most part. There are people that buy every collector edition game we built, sight unseen. There's a guy, Vince Evans, who's a musician. He's a really great guy down in Maryland area, and he sends a picture of his game room, and he calls it the house that Jack built, and God bless him and everybody else like that. You want to have fun, you want to have variety. All of our games are different. They all play different than each other, but they all look like brother and sister. They're in the same family with all the same energy and effort put into the development and design of them.
Well, I love all the games I've always gotten from you, and more importantly, I love the service and I love the friendship we developed over the years. How do people who are listening, if they want to find out what's available, get in touch with you, either phone, email, whatever it is?
They could go to jerseyjackpinball.com, JERSEY Jack pinball.com. If somebody wants to call me, 800-473-JACK. 800-473-JACK. It's been the same number for so many years. People call me all hours of the day and night because we have distributors and customers around the world. So I know in Australia is 14 hours ahead right now. I know Belgium is 7 hours ahead. I know pretty much everywhere around the world.
Well, I'm just going to say to the audience, and I'll let you continue on. There's nobody else I would want to call for anything that I want to spend money on that I absolutely don't need in this category. And the big reason is because it's you. You're there, available, you're knowledgeable. Anything that goes wrong, we figure it out. It's never.
And it's not just me. There's a whole company of really great people supporting.
Well, it's your culture though. It's like my company. The culture drips from the top.
That's true. That's true.
The culture drifts from the top.
It's very humbling, really. Some customers that we have are children of customers I started with, and a lot of times what happens is you become friends like we did, and you get to spend quality time with people aside from pinball, which is great too. So you have an extended family. Yeah,
we recently this year just discovered our mutual love for Jackie Mason. That was great. We must have spent an hour on the phone. You should know.
Everybody knows a building they could have bought for $35. Yeah. Well, buy it now. Now
it's too late. Now it's too late. Now we can't even get into this because we'll be another hour. But Jack, thanks so much for being a guest today. Really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure, Jonathan.
And enjoy the rest of the summer.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to this episode of Crazy Wealthy Podcast. You can get us on crazywealthypodcast.com, all your favorite podcast venues, and our website, fusionfamilywealth.com.
Stay tuned to hear Amy's call-in for the recap of today's episode.
Hi, hon.
Hello, honey.
I just wanted you to know that I just got my high score on the Elton John pinball machine. I still haven't beaten your high score, but it's my own personal high.
Well, congratulations. That means you're not spending enough time in the kitchen.
Oh, okay. You should say I'm not spending enough time at work is what you should be saying. But I do know that the reason why I got on the machine is because I know you had a call with your buddy Jack today, so I wanted to hear all about it.
Yeah, Jack Guarnieri. I call him the pinball wizard. He's one of the leading people in the industry in games for the home, all kinds of arcade games, not just pinball, but video games and foosball, all those kinds of games, high end to medium end. And he's been in the business for many decades now. He's an industry leader and a great guy.
Did he tell you all about how he got started with it?
He did. In fact, interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, he was highlighted in Town and Country magazine. So I had a pre-read of that before we talked about, in his own words, how he got started. But basically, he discovered when he was 14, 15, and he was on CB radio for those things where you had the antennas on the back of the car. And he had developed a group of friends all into electronics. And so he discovered his love for electronics. And then when he was in high school, he said half his time in the electronics lab, and to the detriment of everything else that he wasn't doing well in. He got like a 99 in electronics and basically didn't do anything with anything else. And when he got ready to apply for colleges, he decided to take a little break, and he took a job with someone repairing pinball machines. And that's kind of how it all started for him.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Sometimes you don't need to go to college for things that you're really good at.
No, it's true. It's true. But so from there, he he kind of had an idea in the 70s that when he really was getting going, that rather than just have pinball machines in pizza places and that kind of thing, where he would kind of put the pinball machines in the pizza place and he would share in the revenues from every quarter that someone put in the machine to play. He had the idea that wealthy people, and not even that wealthy, anyone who had a credit card, right, they could buy these things for their home. And he eventually became, before he started his own pinball company in 2011, in addition to his other gaming company that he started many decades earlier, he was the biggest distributor in the world for Stern pinball machines, which was the leading pinball machine maker. And he brought the idea to them that people would want to have these in their homes, and they kind of laughed it off. But he really helped pioneer the home game industry. And in 2011, he started his own pinball company that competes with Stern, called Jersey Jack. And what he calls it, really playable artwork, right? So like the pinball machine we have in Montauk that we recently bought, the Elton John. You see it; it's like artwork. It has the tiny dancer, it has the crocodile from Crocodile Rock, and it's just cool to watch. So that was his whole thing, and he also described how the machines started off as electromechanical games. If you remember those white wheels that turned, like you had like the first wheel might say a 6, and then the second one a 0, and so it went from that to electronic, and then he pioneered the whole HD screen concept now, where you see all the cool color shows and everything else. So he really took the industry almost single-handedly to another level.
And actually, now that you're talking about that, he really did a pivot probably before he even knew he had to, because if you walk into any pizza place these days, you don't generally see a pinball machine anymore.
Right. Well, one of the things he said to that point is, when I said to him, what are the things that the most surprising on the positive side for you? And he talked about the advancement of technology in the gaming industry. But then I said, what about on the opposite side? And he said, today he wishes there was more an awareness that pinball machines exist, right? So that's the challenge, like, because you don't see them, right? So there's no awareness in general like there used to be. We used to go play them in the arcades.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I think it was over Father's Day weekend, we had the whole family out, and I was playing pinball with the kids, and they were beating me, left and right. And I said to them, guys, this isn't fair. Like, when I grew up, I'd go to the pizza place every day at lunch, and I'd play pinball, and I was so good at it. How are you guys so good at it without having gone to the pizza place all these days? And they reminded me, grew up in our houses where pinball machines were always very important to you. And most kids are not like our kids. Most kids have not seen pinball machines in years and years and years. So
you said that you cut out a little bit, but I guess what you were saying is they said, they didn't play it in the pizza places, but they grew up with it in our house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most of their friends really don't know pinball, so it kind of is a dying art almost.
Yeah, well, but he's really doing well with it. And what's interesting is just to talk about Jack for a second. Outside, what made him successful, in my view, is kind of like was something I relate to. I tried to become a master in my craft of behavioral counseling and everything, and I'm always trying to enhance what I know and learn more to help my clients. But I'm always available, as you know, to my clients 24/7. And that's Jack. Jack is very successful. When we got the few games for the basement here, I call him on a Saturday. He answers his cell phone. He was telling me he has this leftover number from the old days when now it's Jersey Jack Pinball, his pinball company, where he makes what he calls the playable art. But before that, it was pinballmachines.com out of New Jersey, big just overall video game distributor along with pinball. And he's just always available. So he said he has a leftover number, one of those numbers where you dial in and it says press 1 if you want this, press 2 if you want that. By 4, it says press 4 to reach Jack Guarnieri. So he said someone called recently and he answered the phone. I guess when they pressed 4, and they're like, Jack, what are you doing answering the phone? He goes, well, you called me.
Oh, that's right. That's very much like you. It's almost another dying art, the dying art of customer service. And even just this weekend, one of our machines, I know you said needed service. You called him, and he said he'd have someone out, to take care of things.
Yeah, no, that's what's wonderful. I really relate to that. Like, he has the same customer service mentality, approach. His customers are his friends, and we really relate to each other that way. That's why he's kind of become a good friend over the years. And we also recently discovered a mutual love for Jackie Mason. So that was another bonding experience we had.
Oh, okay. Another dying art. But I'm just curious. I guess I would assume at this point, because it's so hard to come by these pinball machines, these are really pinball machines that people who have a lot of excess income, that's what they spend their money on. It's not just a regular, everyday person that goes and spends their money on this stuff.
The Jersey Jack pinball machines, like the collectors, like the Elton John machines, they're expensive. So I think that those are people who really want the art type of experience. But there are less expensive machines that, as Jack said, anyone with a credit card could really buy them.
So the other stuff is made for people who just like their toys.
Right.
What was the biggest takeaway you took from your conversation with Jack? I know you've known him over all these years, but from this podcast, what was the biggest takeaway you had?
Well, I had confirmation that, whatever field somebody's in, you don't become successful because you're chasing success in the form of material success, money specifically. You become successful because you're passionate about something. You follow your passion. And when you're sharing your passion, which is how I look at it with your clients and how he looks at it, he's not making money from his clients. He's sharing his passion with his friends. And that's how I look at my business. And when you have all of those ingredients, the passion, the wanting to share it with people, and when that's what's leading, then those are the people who really achieve the highest levels of success. And this was one other confirmation of that.
Well, that definitely summarizes you in a nutshell, because I know you live, breathe, and sleep what you do, and I'm assuming he does the same. So it does make sense that the successful people are the ones who are going to really believe in what they do. Having said that, I believe that I need to even get my score even higher and maybe hit your high score. So I'm going to take off from here and go back to my pinball playing.
All right, go have fun. And until next time, love you again.
Love you too. Have fun. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. For more insights, resources, and to sign up for our newsletter, visit crazywealthypodcast.com. Until then, stay crazy wealthy.
The previous podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, was intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and it should not be assumed that future performance of any specific investment or investment strategy or any non-investment related or planning services, discussion, or content will be profitable, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation. Neither Fusion's investment advisor registration status nor any amount of prior experience or success should be construed that a certain level of results or satisfaction will be achieved if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Fusion is neither a law firm nor accounting firm, and no portion of its services should be construed as legal or accounting advice. No portion of the video content should be construed by a client or prospective client as a guarantee that he or she will experience a certain level of results if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.